Hi, I'm Joe Parcell with the University of Missouri's College of Ag, Food, and Natural Resources, and I'm happy to be your host today on this segment of Take One for Ag. Joining me today is Scott Gerlt, Research Associate with the Food and Agricultural Policy Research Institute, or better known as FAPRI. To kick this off, we want to talk a little bit about the baseline, and to make our viewers more aware, there'll be the 6th Annual Abner Womack Outlook Conference on April 17th here at the University of Missouri. You can find that information as well as information on their newest 10-year briefing book on www.fapri.missouri.edu. I've asked Scott to join us today to talk a little bit about that briefing book in terms of crops outlook. So Scott is this crops outlook specialist for FAPRI. So Scott, if you don't mind, we'll kind of get started here. Great. So on there. So Scott, there's been a lot of soybeans have been in the news. So especially from our friends in China in terms of some of the trade negotiations that are going on out there. What's the briefing book telling us about soybeans for next year and even beyond? So
yeah, thank you, Joe. One of the most important things to understand as we begin talking about soybeans is that our baseline assumes that the current trade issues with China continue. So there's not a quick fix assumed into this. And so with that, we have an $8.78 per bushel soybean price for 2019 and 20. This will be the second year in a row that soybean prices would be below $9. Now, as we continue to deal with the trade issue, we do assume that some of the trade is rerouted and there's some recovery longer term of soybean prices, but we're still talking about a $9.06 per bushel average price from 2020 to 2028. So that's about 40 cents lower than the past few years of average. So we're not talking about getting up to the levels that we've been seeing recently.
Okay. Well, we know that soybean and corn acres compete, and of course a lot of farmers put them in a rotation together. So kind of making that transition from what's going on in soybeans, what's the outlook for corn is related to that?
Yeah, corn outlook is better than soybeans right now. We're projecting a $3.81 price for corn next year. That's up from $3.53 in 2018. And there's just been stronger demand for corn, even though we have a decent level of production. Just the demand's been there to help corn prices along. And in longer term, we do have corn prices going down just a bit to $3.51 as some of the demand weakens just a bit, but we're still looking at a better situation than soybeans.
Big demand drivers there for corn being feed, biofuels,
correct,
exports.
Correct. The past few years, corn exports have been up. There's been some crop issues in South America, and cheaper oil prices have also helped drive some ethanol use recently, which has helped the demand.
All right. So let's shift gears to a crop that gets a lot of global attention, wheat. What's that new baseline 10-year outlook saying for wheat for U.S. producers?
Sure, $5.31 next year. That's up a little bit, about 15 cents from this past year. That's largely due to corn just having higher demand, and that helps push up that wheat prices. We also had a little weaker global production this year, and so longer term we're thinking it's going to get down to about an average of 5.18 through the projection period, just because of all the stocks hanging out there.
Yeah. In terms of corn and wheat being able to substitute there at some levels for feed, so that's good to know. So let's kind of I want to ask kind of this final question here, Scott, and that's related to government program benefits. They're part of the FAPRI baseline model and help kind of derive some of what that farm income looks like. So to talk to us a little bit about those farm program payments, what they look like for 19-20 marketing year.
Right. So I'll start with 18 first a little bit, because there was a one-time program, market facilitation program, it's going to make about $8 billion or more in payments to producers, and that's to help offset trade losses from the ongoing trade wars. Now that program we assume will not be available in 2019. That's what the Secretary of Agriculture has announced, and so we go with what has been said by the department. And so that's one major shift. The other is the new Farm Bill allows producers to shift between the ARC and PLC programs. They can do that every year of the Farm Bill except for 2020, amazingly. And PLC looks a lot more attractive in the new Farm Bill than it did for some of the crops in the old Farm Bill. So we assume that a lot of corn, soybeans, and wheat producers are going to switch over to the PLC program, whereas traditionally they had been more in ARC. So that actually So some of those assumptions increase PLC payments quite a bit. In 19 from 18, we go from 1.8 billion to 4.5 billion in PLC payments in total between the 2 years. But total payments are down in 19 from 18 just because of the loss of or the non-continuance of the
transition payments.
Yeah,
in there.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, giving those producers a little bit more flexibility on what programs they can enroll in is pretty nice perk of the new Farm Bill.
Yes,
it sounds like.
it is.
On
It
there.
is.
So that'll be helpful. So, well, we're going to wrap up. Scott, I want to thank you for joining us on Take One for Ag, and to our viewers, I want to thank you for taking part in this segment of Take One for Ag. And I want to acknowledge our partners out there in the FAPRI, along with the College of Ag, Food and Natural Resources here, the United States Department of Agriculture, along with specifically the Office of Chief Economist, bring FAPRI to the farmers across the nation and agribusinesses across the world that serve the world. So we want to thank you.